Field Trip Fever, a.k.a. Totally Fine, Definitely Not Dying, Peter Parker edition, by Little Lovers Fandoms. Chapter 2, Grounded with a Fever. By the time the field trip bus rolled away from Stark Industries, Pepper had already called Happy. By the time Peter got home, she'd called Tony. And by the time Peter was curled up on the couch with a fever and a blanket, Tony Stark was yelling over speakerphone so loudly that even Friday pretended to mute herself. "You got shot and stabbed," Tony's voice roared through the room, echoing from Pepper's phone where it sat on the coffee table. "And then you thought, you know what would make this better? A field trip." Peter winced, sinking deeper into the couch. "Technically it was educational." "Educational?" Tony shouted. "What were you learning? How to give your father a heart attack from across the planet?" Pepper sat beside Peter, rubbing her temple with one hand and holding a takeout bag with the other. "Tony, yelling isn't helping." "Yelling is all I've got, Pep," Tony shot back. "I'm in Dubai. You know what time it is here? You know how fast I can get back in the suit?" Peter immediately sat up, alarmed. No, Dad, don't fly back. It's fine. I'm fine." Tony made a sound somewhere between a groan and a laugh. "You are not fine, Peter. You're a germ-filled bullet sponge." MJ snorted from the armchair. "He's not wrong." Peter glared weakly at her. "You're supposed to be on my side." "Yeah, no," MJ said, crossing her arms. "You forfeited that right when you pretended a fever was just radiating energy." Peter groaned and flopped back against the couch. "E too, MJ." Ned, sitting cross-legged on the floor, raised his hand. "Sorry, bro, I gotta side with MJ on this one. You literally almost melted on the bus." "E too, Ned," Peter cried dramatically, throwing his arms up. "I thought you were my guy in the chair." "I'm your realistic guy in the chair," Ned replied. "There's a difference." Pepper sighed and held out a takeout container. "Eat, all of you, before I change my mind." MJ and Ned immediately grabbed food. Peter hesitated, looking at her warily. "Are you still mad?" Pepper gave him that mom look that could silence a thunderstorm. "I'm furious. But I also know you're sick, so I'll save it until your fever's gone. Consider that mercy." Peter wilted. "Thanks." A few minutes later, the living room smelled like noodles, curry and guilt. Happy arrived, balancing another bag of takeout in one hand. "Hey boss," he greeted Pepper. "Got the food as requested. You want me to grab something else?" "Yeah," Pepper said, glancing over at Peter, who was half buried under a blanket, noodle container in hand. "Can you pick up fever meds from medbay and then grab Morgan from aftercare? Bring her home." Happy nodded. "Got it." He looked at Peter and smiled faintly. "Try not to die while I'm gone, kid." Peter gave a weak thumbs up. "Working on it." When the door closed, the living room finally quieted, except for MJ and Ned's ongoing argument about what to watch. "Jaws," MJ declared. "Classic. Shark. Blood. It'll match his bad decisions." "Star Wars," Ned argued. "Classic. Lightsabers. Less trauma." MJ raised an eyebrow. "Shark eat people. Way more fun." Peter, who'd been silently zoning out, perked up just enough to mumble, "Star Wars, Rise of Skywalker." His head immediately fell back onto the couch again. MJ turned to look at him. He was blinking up at her, cheeks flushed with fever, expression soft and dazed and unintentionally adorable. She sighed dramatically, rolling her eyes. "Fine, Star Wars it is, nerd." "Victory," Peter whispered, smiling faintly before closing his eyes. Ned chuckled, already scrolling through Disney+. "You really can't say no to him when he's like that, huh?" MJ crossed her arms, trying to hide the faint smile tugging at her lips. "Shut up, Ned." 10 minutes later, the three of them were curled up on the couch with takeout containers, The Rise of Skywalker playing on the massive Stark Industries smart TV. Peter's head was resting on MJ's shoulders now, half asleep but content. Every so often he'd mumble something about bad physics or that's not how space works, and MJ would absent-mindedly flick his ear in response. Ned laughed quietly. You guys are basically an old married couple. Keep talking, MJ said without looking away from the screen, and I'll feed your noodles to Peter. Peter made a sleepy noise. Please don't, I'm full. Pepper walked into the room just in time to see the three of them sprawled out, surrounded by empty containers and quiet laughter. Her frustration softened. Tony was still texting her in all caps. Is he alive? I can be there in 6 hours. Do not test me, I will put a mini fridge in the suit. She smiled faintly and typed back. He's fine, eating noodles, watching Star Wars. Fever's still up, but meds are on the way. Tell him I'm still yelling in spirit. Pepper looked over at Peter, softly snoring now, his head still resting on MJ's shoulder, and whispered under her breath. You're just like your dad. MJ gently brushed Peter's hair away from his face. Yeah, she murmured, but way cuter. Ned grinned. And way more likely to get grounded for life. Pepper sighed, but there was a smile tugging at her lips. That's an understatement. When Happy came back with the meds and Morgan in tow, the movie was ending. Morgan climbed onto the couch beside her brother, poking his arm. Petey, wake up! You missed the ending! Peter blinked sleepily, voice hoarse but warm. It's okay, Mo. I've seen it before. Morgan beamed. You still owe me ice cream. He smiled weakly. Deal. Pepper watched the two of them, her heart caught somewhere between worry and love. Tony Stark was still ranting halfway across the world. Friday was still quietly monitoring vitals. And Peter Parker, shot, stabbed, feverish and exhausted, was home, safe and smiling. For tonight, that was enough. Thanks for listening. I really hope you enjoyed. Have a lovely rest of your day.